Hello, this is Matthew Brooks for MMH, the home of rock radio. I'm here with Edward Banchs, the author of Heavy Metal Africa. Thank you for joining us today. How have you been enjoying the symposium so far?
Oh, it's been great. This is a blast. This is really good thing, and the museum tie-in is great. I got to see that yesterday. It was quite exciting. I wasn't expecting this. I thought it would be a more quieter, like classroom traditional conference like these things usually are. This has just exploded. This is great.
So how is this different from other conferences then?
I think the mix of having we really reached outside of academia for this. Mm-hmm. I know I usually speak at academic conferences, but this one was far different, and the questions have been great, and seems to be genuine interest in not just metal from here within the United Kingdom, but elsewhere, mm-hmm. including places like Africa. So
yeah. So on that subject, what brought you to the idea of researching about African metal?
Oh, cool. I actually went to graduate school right here in the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. I went to the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies, and I have a degree in African Studies, a master's degree in African Studies. I focus my work on post-colonial politics, mm-hmm. but I'm also a lifelong metal fan. Mm-hmm. And I just, since I was living in London, I kind of took up with the metal pubs there, just to kind of make some friends and whatnot. And getting involved with the metal scene, I was being asked, because they knew I was here to study Africa, what the metal scenes were like in Africa. And it was a burning curiosity that I had, because I couldn't answer that question. And that annoys me. I have to know everything, right? I always have to. When I was a kid, I know in America, I'm a big baseball fan, and we had baseball cards growing up, and I always used to read the back to memorize them, because I needed to know the answers to questions, and I didn't know the answer to that question. So I started digging in, and 5 years later, that popped out.
Well, that's a lot of work to produce this book.
Yeah.
There are 6 countries mentioned in this book. Obviously, this is going to be quite an overgeneralization, but can you talk a little bit about sort of what the differences are in between those countries' metal scenes, or is it just quite all over?
Some have been rooted there longer. Mm-hmm. Some have better access. South Africa has far better access than a country like Madagascar. They are more globally positioned. They have a stronger connection to the European continent. Their infrastructure and economy is massive, where Madagascar doesn't have those resources, but they still have the bands, because you still have a desire to perform if you're a musician and an aspiring metal fan. Botswana just doesn't have the population that South Africa does, but they have the ambitions to do it. There's still elements of everyday life, like the corruption in Kenya really, I think, is affecting that scene. For the worse, but you have to dig through those things. So there are still those differences.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So does that play into any sort of common musical trends within particular countries, or is it just sort of, each country just has bits of everything in it?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, but it always starts off. There's a template for heavy metal, and it was born right here in the West. And that's the sound that the musicians in Africa are emulating, because those are their heroes. So whether it's the younger bands that fans told me about, I say younger, but like Triviums and Slipknots and those Devil Wear Prada type bands, because they're still, they're not Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and Priest, those well-established bands that influenced the previous generation. That's who their heroes are, and that's the sound that they want to emulate. It's changing maybe a little bit, but the idea of maybe even incorporating their own traditions isn't really a part of it quite yet. It's going to change. So that really is still the same. At least the same experiences that metal fans in the West have and aspiring musicians have is exactly the same that African musicians have, because they're listening to the same bands and they have the same aspirations as well. The only thing is that they're not being taken as seriously as Western bands are. I think that's just the difference, because they're in Africa still. We're not used to seeing that. They've broken a stereotype for us.
I mean, is that frustrating to you as someone who spent all this time researching all of this music and it's still not taken seriously? I still see articles about international metal, and they name 10 European bands and then one maybe from China or something.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. I often wonder what's different about the African bands. What could it be? We have just a problem contextualizing, at least where I'm from, the United States. I think we have a hard time contextualizing success from people who are out of the white periphery. And even in our metal scene, I think it's an open world, but at the same time, we wonder if it is. That's the African problem. We're not used to seeing that. We want Africa to be a certain way. So when we hear something like heavy metal coming from Africa, that's a hindrance. They need to be taken seriously. At least they want to be. Yeah. Their music, some of these bands music's right on par, man. You got some really great bands out of Africa.
So yeah, in that case, can you list just a couple who?
Just a few?
Yeah. As many as you want, who you think people should?
We'll start. I'm I'm off to Kenya in a few weeks, so we'll start. They have Last Year's Tragedy, great metalcore band. If you like more melodic driven stuff like Foo Fighters type stuff, a little heavier, is a band called Parking Lot Grass that's absolutely great. The Straight Line Connection. There's Rash is a new band it's really cool. Crystal Access is a good punk band. In Botswana we have Overthrust, we have Rust, we have Skinflint, we have Raven and Flesh. In South Africa we have The Drift, we have Zombies Ate My Girlfriend, Dividing the Element in Zimbabwe, Behind the Mask in Madagascar. Is that enough?
Yeah, I mean that's perfect.
I could keep going. Yeah,
that's a great list for people to start checking out. So one of the things that I've seen spoken about a lot in music media in general is the influence of streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, and how they, in some people's opinion, they've internationalized music by making it easier for people to get their music out there. Has that had any impact on the African scene?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there was a dearth of if buying physical media was unavailable and actually even promoting it locally, like radio stations aren't going to play this on the radio in those countries. So that is a great access. It's a great entry point. Heavy metal, I need to clarify, found its way into Africa before the internet. Just like any other sort of form, the model of the tape trading, the fanzines, at least I think you guys had Metal Maniac here in the United Kingdom, but you had like those pen pal sections in the back of those magazines. That was still very much a part of that, of the African metal experience, but streaming now just has leveled the playing field. So what I'm discovering at my home in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the same bands can have the same access to, or the musicians and fans in any of these countries have the same access to now equally. They don't have access though to physical media, though they would like to. They always tell me how much they would love to buy a physical CD or a physical vinyl copy of anything that they have, but yeah.
So what do you think people here in the UK or at home for you in the US or elsewhere can do to help these bands sort of get their music out there more over here?
Just promote them, word of mouth. There's some ambitious fans that have taken it to the next level that have become like sort of promoters for them or have helped bring them to, like, I know Germany, a band from Botswana called Overthrust, a death metal band, has toured Germany now twice. They've even played the Wacken Festival. Twice. I believe they're coming to the United Kingdom in November. I have to double check. We'll see.
I'll double check that and put it up on the website.
But there's a photo of the vocalist of Overthrust hanging out right here in the atrium.
That's cool.
Yeah, but so that's happened where they've become ambitious enough to challenge themselves by bringing these bands over. It's not easy. Getting visas for African passports isn't very easy. Nonetheless, to be able to come and perform, and cost too. But that's one thing. They're gonna still try to print merch. Buy it.
Fair enough.
They generate money by doing that. And if they can sell it for you in dollars or pounds, you're making it to them sometimes tenfold for what it is in their banknotes, and that's going to help them significantly. It's just like with anything, though. You should be supporting the bands that you like. We don't have the access to go see them, but we can still support them in that way by buying their music, not buying their or getting that free download from Bandcamp, maybe even pitching in a few bucks, because they still put in the money to record it to make it up to par. So that's a great way of promoting the bands and telling your friends if you really like it, of course, like anything else.
So just to sort of wrap up on this, is there anything that you've got coming up that you want people out there to know about?
I'm still doing my work. I'm writing another book about metal in Africa. When I leave the United Kingdom here on Tuesday, I'm right off to West Africa for the first time, because there's metal and rock are kicking up in West Africa now. And I want to be the guy on the ground to see it. I got to see this stuff.
That sounds awesome.
I'm off to the Nairobi Metal Festival. Then after that, I'm researching my next book. I'm still writing articles for academic publications. I'm writing articles for mainstream, more non-academic magazines, newspapers, whoever, contacts me. My next book hopefully helps continue the dialogue of metal in Africa. So,
excellent. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks.